Hello, my little hellhounds. Welcome to Home of Scares. If you like scary content, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. The Chain Smoker, posted by No Just No. This happened to me 6 years ago and will haunt me for the rest of my life. I grew up in one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in all of North America. The neighborhood was initially supposed to house 12,000 people, but by the time I was 12 years old, it had a population of around 30,000 people. It was one of Toronto's poorest neighborhoods, with 50% of the population being under the poverty line, though the crime rate was not nearly as high as you'd expect it to be. The neighborhood was mostly made up of immigrants and refugees looking to find a better life, my family included. It was summer break between 5th and 6th grade, and my cousins, who happened to live in the same apartment complex, were at our place watching movies. I was getting hungry, so I grabbed some money and headed for the convenience store to get snacks. It was around 7 p.m, so the sun was still up and there was an hour and a half left of light. The convenience store was half a block away, so I walked it. When I got to the parking lot of the residential building the store was in, I noticed a man wearing a black hoodie with horizontal green stripes, standing in the corner of the parking lot. There was nothing too noticeable about the man except that he was smoking directly under a no smoking sign. Nothing uncommon in that neighborhood, just kind of ironic. I walk up the steps and into the cramped convenience store. There might have been 7 people in there, but it looked as if it was already almost full, probably as big as a mid-sized apartment, and was already stocked up to the ceiling. Point is, if anyone enters, everyone in the store knows. So I come in, and directly to the left of the entrance is a shelf packed with many different varieties of candy. I was like any child who has 20 different varieties of candy laid out in front of them, but only has the budget for 2. Lost in thought, at the moment I forget about the man who was smoking. He enters through the door. He walks into the nook of the store behind me, where they keep all of the flatbread. I can feel his gaze on the back of my head. I quickly decide on the snacks, pay, and and leave. I walk out, down the steps and to the sidewalk on the other side of the narrow parking lot. When I hear the chimes of the exit door, I glance behind me to see who is exiting the store, and I am a shade under petrified when I see the man exit the store, especially when I notice he is carrying nothing in his hands. I quicken my pace just a tad and reason with myself that he just bought another pack of cigarettes and just put it in his pockets. That idea has barely crossed my mind by the time I am halfway back to my building. I turn around to see if he is still there. He is maybe 15 feet away from me when we make eye contact. He has his hood off and I can see his face clearly. He looks to be Afghan. There were a lot of those since the neighborhood was a hot spot for refugees, and at the time Afghanistan was doing really badly. He has scars covering his face and is balding on top. He couldn't have been too tall because he wasn't much taller than 6th grade me, so like 5'4" or 5'6". I spin back around and start to speed up, and I hear footsteps behind me quicken. By the time we got to the D-shaped driveway to my building, we were speed walking. Remember, it's broad day and there are plenty of people around, and a man chasing a kid around is weird to anybody. As soon as we hit the split in the sidewalk which separates the driveway and the straight path, I start sprinting at full speed to my building. Luckily, there was someone buzzing in at that exact moment, and I slipped in the door behind him. I quickly whirl around and pull the pneumatic glass door shut. When I look up, I see the man seconds too late on the other side of the glass. The look on his face still scares me. He stared at me with an expression of anger I had never seen before, nor have seen since. I run to the elevators and push the button. He starts rattling the door. The expression on his face was still sinister. When the elevator comes, he understands that he won't catch me. He leads the way we came. Hey, don't worry, I'm a good guy. Hosted by Pippa Pipe. Hi, first of all, I just want to say English is my second language, so please forgive me if I make any mistakes with grammar or spellings. In this story I'm about to tell you all, as a backstory, I'm from Malaysia, and this story happened in one of the international airports there. I came from the East Malaysia, and I was a student at one of the local universities in Peninsular Malaysia. You can't travel to Peninsular Malaysia by land because the Peninsula and East Malaysia is separated by the South China Sea. So, of course, the fastest way to get to the peninsula is by flight, and for some reason I really liked taking the last flight of the night to get to my destination. I usually travelled alone, and I mostly keep to myself, as I am an introvert and don't really like talking to strangers. Before that night, I haven't really encountered any problems with weird people, as the airport tended to be busy, and I always stand in an area filled with other people minding their own business, and in flight I would just read or listen to some music. I also tended to just ignore the person sitting next to me. One night my flight was unfortunately delayed. We were supposed to reach our destination close to midnight, but with the delay we would reach the airport close to 2 AM. I remember being frustrated because I know it will be hard to get an Uber that late. I sighed and then just decided that I would spend the night at the airport and grab an Uber the next morning to my university. No big deal, I thought. People do this all the time, I thought, so I relaxed into my seat. I forgot to mention that during the flight I was supposed to seat in the middle, but when everyone was seated, I noticed that the aisle seat was empty. I moved there. This was when I noticed a guy sitting on the window seat was acting strange. He kept looking at me and was trying to get my attention, but I ignored him with all my might because I was just tired and don't really want to have a conversation with a stranger. I just closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. I remember it was really cold inside and was thinking about just turning off the AC on top of my seat, but didn't really want to move because then the guy would know I'm awake and I will be forced to engage in a conversation with him. It was a 2.5 hour flight after all, and I don't want to have a conversation during the flight. Then suddenly I feel a whole lot colder than before, and I open my eyes just a little to figure out what's going on. Then I saw the guy actually adjusting both the AC from the top of his seat and also the AC from the middle seat to face me. I got very annoyed, but I'm not actually someone who likes to confront people for anything, so I just sucked it up and closed my eyes, even though I was now shivering, and just sort of hugged myself and continued to ignore this guy. I honestly don't know what the guy was thinking doing that to me. I thought he was done doing whatever he was doing and wouldn't bother me anymore after that, right? After all, I didn't respond to whatever the heck he was doing, even though I am suffering in silence now from the cold. However, when the air hostess started to distribute the prepaid meals to the passengers, and he noticed that I didn't have a meal when he got his, he suddenly tapped my shoulder, and I just tensed up and looked at him in alarm, because I really don't like being touched by people due to some childhood trauma. But this guy doesn't seem to notice my reaction to him and just smiled at me. "Hey, I noticed that you don't have a meal. Aren't you hungry? You know what? You can have my meal," he said, and I was just looking at him before saying, "No, it's okay," and smiled uncomfortably. But he insisted and even got me to lower my table and forcing me to accept his meal. Then he ordered another meal for himself and started telling me that he can't eat alone after seeing me. He said he felt sorry for me and that it was in his nature to help people, and then he just watched me eating his meal with a big grin on his face. He didn't even touch his meal until after I was done. Now, if the meal wasn't prepared by the airline and it was still sealed, I would definitely think he put something in the meal. But then I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe he really was just trying to be helpful, even though I felt extremely uncomfortable and he was being a little forceful. He even moved to the middle seat to be closer to me. He then asked me what my name was and told me his name was Sam and that he worked somewhere in the peninsula. I just nodded, and then he asked me where I was from and why I was going to the peninsula. I gave him a short but honest answer just to be polite. When I told him I was a student at one of the local universities there, he then asked me how I was going to get to my university at this hour. I stupidly said, "Oh, I'm just going to spend the night at the airport." used to it. What? No, that's too dangerous for a girl as pretty as you, he said, before continuing. You know what? My brother has a place not far from the airport. Why don't you stay with me? Oh, don't worry, my sister-in-law is there. You wouldn't be alone. Don't worry, I'm a good person, he said, still with that big grin on his face. I immediately became afraid and quickly said no, while shaking my head. There will be a lot of people at the airport. I'm used to it, I said, but he ignored me and began to chatter happily, not caring whether I answered him or not. At one point he even asked me if I was single and asked for my phone number, and I just gave it to him, but was planning to block his number if he ever tried to contact me or something. He even made a few comments about my looks and how he found me so cute and that I looked so lost. So he just had to say something to me. At this point, I began thinking about my options. For some reason, I didn't think about approaching one of the air hostesses for help, because technically he hadn't done anything wrong to me, but I felt scared anyhow. I decided that I would get out as fast as I can as soon as we landed and ditch this guy just to be safe. I don't know, maybe I'm just being an idiot, but I have had several encounters with creepy people before that it was so bad that my few friends and cousins called me the weirdo magnet due to my naivety. So no, I'm not taking any chances. After all, I was a first-year student and had just started university, and I didn't have anyone that I can really call my friends yet. So yeah, I'm on my own. So back to the story. The plane landed and I tried to get out as fast as I can, but I have a hand to carry luggage and it was slowing me down. Sam was standing behind me the whole time, and once we get on the ground, he actually held my hand as if it was the most natural thing to do. I froze. I was really scared and I honestly didn't know what to do. I absolutely hated it when people touched me. My family never hugged me, and my very few friends knew that I hated being touched unless I told them it's okay to touch me. And this stranger just grabbed hold of my hand without saying anything. I know I should do something, maybe scream for help, but I just stood there and froze, like the idiot that I am. I just followed this stranger. Then we walked past the toilet and I suddenly got an idea. I told Sam that I needed to go to the toilet. At first he said no time because his brother is here, and we needed to hurry up, but I insisted on going and said I really have to pee, and I wasn't lying either. So he sighed and said okay. I got hopeful, maybe I can escape from this guy, so I started to drag my stupid luggage to the toilet, but this guy stopped me and told me he can look after my luggage for me. I said no thanks, but he just grabbed my luggage from my hand and told me to hurry up. So I walked to the toilet and stayed there for a bit, panicking. I thought about ditching my luggage and trying to escape without it, but then I remembered that my laptop was inside that luggage and it has all my important documents that I needed for my study. I tried to call somebody, but my phone was dead. I started to tear up a bit and decided to just ditch my stupid luggage and run away somehow, but I must have taken too much time in the toilet, because then I heard someone enter the toilet and called my name. Yeah, it was Sam. My heart dropped. I slowly got out from the toilet, fully convinced that this was it for me. I'm doomed. Now, you would think that I could ask for someone's help, or just approach one of the staff for help. I know I should, but as soon as he touched me, my skin crawled, and I just got really scared again. And since it was already very late, and we were really the last flight to arrive that night, there were very few staff around, and those that were working were engaged in something else, or were surrounded by other passengers, probably asking for help about accommodation for the night or something. I just watched them helplessly, hoping someone might notice my distress, but everyone just ignored me. While walking towards his brother's car, he told me to tell his brother that I am his girlfriend and just to stay quiet and he'll do all the talking. Then I thought maybe I could ask his brother for help and just send me to my university instead of going wherever this guy is planning to take me. But then I started thinking that what if his brother doesn't believe me? I mean, between family and a stranger, who would you believe, right? Plus, maybe I am being stupid and Sam was really helping me, even though he was forceful and wouldn't let go of me. Maybe he was just overly nice, seeing no other choice. I sadly got into the car with them. Now, I'm not good with cars, but I remember the car I got into with these strangers is a black double cabin Hilux, but I didn't see the plate number, so we drove for about an hour, and all the time I was scared this guy wouldn't let my hand go. I noticed the brother keep looking at me through the mirror, and I was even more scared and uncomfortable. Then they brought me to this condo. I was hoping that there really was a sister-in-law, and that all of this was just a huge, stupid misunderstanding. But then his brother told me that his wife is not home and that she was visiting some family member and will only be back tomorrow. I don't know what to think anymore, so Sam told me I can stay in his room, and tomorrow morning he'd take me back to my university. I didn't really want to go to his room, but I don't really want to stay in the living room with two men that I don't know. He showed me to his room and then handed me my luggage back, and I just locked the door. So I just sit in his bed looking at the door. My heart was pounding like mad. For a while, nothing happened. Then I heard a knock on the door. I tried to be quiet, because maybe whoever it was will leave me alone, thinking I had gone to sleep. "It's Sam, are you awake?" he said in a quiet voice. "I just needed to talk to you for a bit." When I didn't say anything, I heard the doorknob was being turned, but I locked it so he can't get in. Then it went quiet again for a bit, until I heard the jingle of a key and my heart dropped. When I realized he had a key and was trying to get inside, I hurriedly told him to wait, and I opened the door just a bit. Sam was there, smiling at me again. "Oh, I thought you were sleeping. Why did you lock the door?" he asked. "What do you want?" "I'm tired. I just really want to rest," I told him, and tried to shut the door, but he pushed the door and prevented me from shutting the door properly. "Sam, please just leave me alone for now. I'm really tired," I told him, but he wouldn't budge. "Hey, what's wrong? I'm really a good person. You have nothing to fear from me. You can trust me," he said. At this point I got another idea. "Oh yeah? Prove it. Give me your IC, Malaysian identification card," I said, and to my surprise, he said okay, and he really did give me his IC. "See, I'm not lying to you," he told me. So yeah, I got his card and saw his name really was Sam, but that doesn't mean anything. The card seems legit, but he is still a stranger to me. Long story short, he got inside the room and locked the door behind him. So it was just him and me, trapped inside the room. He tried to have a conversation with me and tried to get me to sit down with him on the bed. But as soon as he tried to get close to me, I just stood up and tried to get to the door, in which point he proceeded to grab my hand, and I tried to get away from him, and I finally screamed and told him to go away. I don't remember much about what happened next, but the next thing I know, I heard his brother's voice calling for us and asking what happened, and he was banging on the door. Now I was crying hysterically and struggled to open the door, while Sam just sat on his bed looking at me. seemingly stunned, as if he didn't do anything wrong. I finally managed to get the door open, and at this point I was sobbing and told his brother I wanted to leave now, and that I didn't want to be there anymore. Somehow I convinced his brother to just drive me to the university. Of course the gate was locked, and the security guard there told me that I had to walk to my dorm because he can't let any car inside after midnight, and I just said it was fine and walked the rest of the way. But I didn't care and didn't want his brother to find out where I stayed, for fear that they might come back and search for me. I was exhausted, and I remember telling my friends back home about what happened the next day after getting some much needed rest, and they dismissed it and saying that I was being dramatic and that it was actually romantic. Yeah, they actually think it was romantic, and I missed a good opportunity to find a boyfriend, and I was like, what the heck? Which part was romantic? The part where he practically dragged me to come with him, even though I repeatedly said no, or the part where he locked me in his room with him? What the actual fuck? Oh, and I still had his IC, but kind of forgot I had it with me until I arrived at my room, and kind of just lost it and cried silently, and realised I was still holding his damn IC, and cried harder, waking up my roommates. I didn't know them that much, but they kind of helped me, and I told them bits and pieces of what happened to me, but honestly I just wanted to sleep and forget anything ever happened. For a week I lived in terror, and I refused to go out of the dorm in fear that Sam and his brother might come back. Sam did text me and called me a few times asking about his IC, and asked me to hang out with him and his brother again, as if nothing happened and everything was fucking fine. And then he told me he went to my university looking for me, and I freaked out. I asked my roommates to drop his card with the security guard, and told Sam to just pick it up there, but he never came. I blocked his number after that. I ended up dropping out of the university a few weeks later, but for a different reason, unrelated to this story, and moved back with my family in East Malaysia. Now, I don't know if I'm actually being over dramatic about what happened that night, and I don't really care if anyone believes me, but it felt good to finally let this off my chest, and I don't really know what would have happened that night if I didn't scream and convinced his brother to send me back to my university. But Sam, the supposedly good guy, let's never meet again, ever. I a pizza guy intercepted a kidnapping during a delivery, hosted by Enough Pizza Now. I deliver pizza and I'd been having a really busy night, non-stop, back and forth, without any time to even pause to take a leak. I'd been so busy that I wasn't really thinking about bathroom breaks, but we're also going through a bit of a heat wave in our area, so I've been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving to this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me, like things went from 0 to 60 in an instant. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so could get this one over quickly, or so I thought. I pulled up to the house, and it was an area I'd delivered in before, so I could immediately see that something wasn't right. All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the street light closest to the door happened to be out of order, and on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area, and obviously there aren't many student renters in July, but there had to be at least one person, because someone ordered this pizza. Maybe they just liked sitting in the dark, or they were out in the yard. Whatever, I just didn't want to get out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night around 9:30 p.m. without first checking that I had the correct address and the customer was inside. It was scorching that night, even after sundown. My car's AC is a joke, and the piping hot pizzas don't help things much. So I have to try and open the car door as infrequently as possible to keep any cool air in. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end said, kind of brusquely and out of breath, "Yeah." I just tried to keep it clear and concise. "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." And the customer replied, still gasping for air, "Yeah, I'm not home." I had to pee so badly by that point that I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with a customer right out of the gate. "Well, then we're going to have to terminate the order, because I've arrived in the stated delivery window and you were supposed to pay in cash, so I don't know what to tell you. Plan ahead next time." I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me, as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very distraught girl who couldn't have been older than 20 or 25. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was running down the street, so I could barely hear you, she cried. I just switched you out of my AirPods. Is that better? Sorry, I completely lost track of time at work, but I knew you were coming. That's why I'm literally running home right now. Please don't leave. I'm starving and I don't have a car. Seriously, please don't leave. 5 minutes tops, okay? I know what it's like to be hungry and running late and have no car, but not to live near any restaurants. Plus, when I heard her voice, I began to remember more specifically having delivered to this place a couple of times before, and she's always been perfectly nice. Now I felt bad for snapping at her. I tried to walk it back while simultaneously looking out my window for potential spots to pee. No, my bad. I'm letting the heat get to me, and it's not your fault. No need to rush. See you when you get here. I hung up while surveying the street. Was starting to think I was really out of luck. All the other houses had people in them and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or out of the way patches of land or anything. Of course, I had just tossed my empty water bottle at the last delivery because I'm an idiot. Finally, I decided it was escalating to the point of emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home, the street light was out, so no one would see me. The people who were home were inside. My car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms, so if anyone did spot me, they'd have no way to connect me to my employer. Animals pee outside all the time. Humans are animals. This is fine. I scurried over to the tallest bush in her front yard. She didn't really have much of a yard, more just a walkway lined with bushes and flowers that ran adjacent to her front door. The biggest cluster of bushes, the only one where I could be sure there would be no visible splatter on the side of the house, was about 4 feet from her door. I looked both ways, unzipped and let fly after the initial millisecond of relief. I noticed the sound was way off, more like pissing on something solid than something leafy. I started panicking, thinking I'd aimed wrong. But once I start, I can't stop midstream, so I kept squinting into the darkness to see if maybe I was hitting a key rock or something and could just move a few inches over. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning noise. a deep voice exclaiming, "What the fuck?" And before I could turn around, assuming I'd been caught by a neighbour, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He blew past me, brushing my golden shower off him as he did. He spit pretty emphatically on the ground, so I thought I might have beamed him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but though this next part is kind of a blur, I don't think I remember hearing a car screech out from a bit further away after a minute. I'd gotten some night vision by that point, so I was able to make out his height, build and outfit, but only the most general details of each. I was in such a shock that I didn't even put my dick away. I just stood there trying to figure out what had happened. The reality was so terrifying that my mind refused to accept it, and impulsively searched for a reasonable explanation that could make everything okay. I thought, could these bushes lead to some backyard area and just looked like they were against the house? Could they have been obscuring an open window? My inner voice was desperately screaming, "Bruh, that man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation." But the very idea that I was within inches of a guy who would be hiding in bushes at all, let alone in front of a young woman's house at night, just wasn't something I was ready to grapple with yet. I was coping by not coping. My fight or flight response totally failed me at that point, because my dumbass did the absolute last thing I should have done and approached the bushes to try and validate this. There must have been a good reason for a man in a hoodie to be behind these bushes in the middle of the night. Theory. So I walked over to the side, turned on my phone's flashlight and tried to peer around the line of shrubbery. Pro tip: as scary as things may look in the dark, seeing them with a single beam of your flashlight can sometimes make it even worse. That's when I saw the bag. There was a tattered drawstring bag sitting behind the bushes, slightly splashed with pee, but I was in such a moronic daze from shock that I groped around for it, thinking, see, this is it. This will explain why he was back here. It explained it once I maneuvered it over and pulled it open. I saw a sharp knife, a roll of tape, and a bottle of pills. The delusions officially broke at that point, and all the adrenaline, endorphins, and self-preservation instincts that had been suppressed kicked in 10 times over. I became whatever the opposite of dazed is, more laser focused than I've ever been in my life, with one singular goal: get back to my car. I dropped the bag, booked it across the street, got in my car and slammed the pedal to the floor. Before the door was even all the way closed, I went as far as I could, as fast as I could, until I hit a red signal. Then I pulled off to the side and realised I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a deep breath. I was finally calm and coherent, enough to zip up and formulate a plan of action. My first lucid thought was, who do I call first? The police or the girl whose house that was? I thought about it for what couldn't have really been more than 10 seconds, but felt like an hour, and decided, okay, I am in my locked car with the engine running. If trouble starts, I can drive away. I know something's up. She might not. She needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was dialing her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl? I thought. I remembered delivering to that house before. But what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me over there to rob me, or worse? Every pizza guy on the planet has seen the Evil Genius documentary by now. So I thought. She called me all out of breath. She wasn't home. The whole thing was off. Can't risk it. I'll start with the cops. I called 911. Operator was very helpful in keeping me calm because I was a complete wreck by this point. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon. But I kept telling them they had to get there before the girl did. But I was trying to express 3 thoughts at once, and really damaging my own credibility. It came out more as, you've got to save this girl, because he wasn't after me. I was just delivering a pizza. Unless they were after me, in which case there might not be a girl. But I talked to the one on the phone, so then you should find that girl, because they used her to lure me there. But if she's real, she doesn't know about the guy who was also real, and there could be more guys if there's actually a girl. And you know what? Even if there isn't a girl, there might actually be more guys. I only checked one part of the bushes, so I don't actually know. But we'll know which guy is the one I saw, because I pissed all over him. You know, I didn't mean to. This was back when I thought the girl was real, but not home. But she might be real, so you really need to find her if she is, because the guy was real. Finally, they basically just asked me to stop talking and stay on the line, but that was when I saw an incoming call from the customer. I couldn't answer it without disrupting my 911 call, so I just ignored it. But then she sent me this text like, "Hey, I'm here. Don't see you." I told 911 she was there, and they said officers were only minutes away, but who knows how long that meant, especially after I'd given such a scattered account of the events in my panic. I just felt overwhelmed with guilt, because my rational mind said the odds of her being a decoy girl or some large scam targeting pizza guys were low, and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. So I put the 911 call on mute, where I can hear them but they can't hear me, and turned back, heart absolutely pounding out of my chest, compulsively muttering fuck, 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 fuck the entire way. Then I took 911 off mute and told them I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about that, but I saw her meandering past the parked cars in the street, looking to see if one was mine. I waved her down, flashing my brights. She bounced over to the window of my car, happy-go-lucky. I figured that was a good sign that she wasn't in on whatever this was, but I just got so scared to be back in the general area and to not know what had happened, or what was going on, or what was going to happen. I kept whispering, get in, and she was like, get it, huh? Oh, you want me to get the pizza from the back? I don't want to make the same mistake as her that I had made with 911, so instead of trying to tell her the whole story, I stuck to the bare basic facts that there was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors. I was barely able to get even those sentences out, and I was shaking like I'd had 10 cups of black coffee. I held up my phone with 911 on the call screen to verify it for her. I thought that was why she got in the car without no further explanation. But it turns out that wasn't entirely it. You still there? Is she with you? Are you safe? Are you safe? Is anyone else there? 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them, and we drove more cautiously this time to a location 911 instructed us to wait at to speak with the police after they cleared the area. I don't actually have to do much after that. The police came pretty soon after. A police car met us. I gave a statement telling them everything I observed, and she went to go to speak to more officers in more detail than they needed me for. It turns out the reason she got right into a strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. Because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind from hearing there's a guy in your bushes. She later called us to thank me and insist on leaving a huge tip. I wasn't there when the call came in, so the kid who answered didn't know to refuse or accept the money, but the manager already promised the next time we see her, we can load her up with enough 1 free pie cards to last a lifetime. Easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, on the job or off. I don't get the chance to tell the story much because I try to avoid sharing it with anyone who could possibly know the girl or know of the event. But I'm still not the same since, even though I know he didn't even have anything to do with me directly. This truly shook me to my core. So, man in the bushes, let's not meet. If you would like more scary stories and creepy weirdos like this, don't forget to push that subscribe button and leave a like. Good night, hellhounds.